Muted.
Tool that woodworkers can definitely take advantage of. That'll assist them not only in the straight design side of developing new and concept projects, but actually through the machining. Today we have with us two individuals from Autodesk, Matt Bundy, who's the executive territory rep for Autodesk, and Steve Brown, who's the senior technical specialist who is intimate with Fusion 360. Fusion 360 has been available for a number of years, first in labs and then part of many of the tools that one purchased through AutoCAD or through Inventor. And my goal today is to present it in a way that shows how it could be used in the real world scenario to actually help us create content that would be very difficult in any other aspect. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to switch this over to Matt, and he'll take it from here. And then at the end of the session, of course, we'll come back and review some of the things we've seen. So Matt, I'd like to pass it over to you at this point.
Thank you very much, Steve, and good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. And of course, a special thank you to Whittam & Associates for being an exemplary partner to Autodesk. We're absolutely thrilled to be in front of you to celebrate the accelerated growth and innovation that is Fusion 360, the world's first next-generation cloud-enabled design software created specifically to promote speed, ease of use, efficiency, and collaboration. Now, there's a very important statistic on the slide on your screen because it involves all of us. And that's that 26% of Autodesk's revenue goes back into R&D. This is the reason we're able to bring you Fusion 360 today. So, as we dive in and showcase the tool for you, you'll see why we believe Fusion 360 represents the most exciting, important, relevant story in our industry today and into the future. So let's start with business challenges. Traditionally, the software industry has been all about the status quo with the typical CAD tools. I'm sure everybody feels the same. And everything up until now has been built on technology that got the job done, but eventually for your business to evolve as a true 21st century competitor, customers expect to go to market at a more rapid pace with more efficient costs than ever before. So there's a need for all of us to be more nimble. And it's true for any industry that we encounter hurdles that can be extremely difficult to overcome on our own, which is why at Autodesk we've identified a need for a product that provides an option for companies to collaborate more seamlessly with colleagues and customers alike. Then, of course, everyone was using separate and disjointed tools with limited access and flexibility. And typically, these tools were tied to a PC, so the overall experience can often be cumbersome. So we made it a top priority to address this and design a tool that has the potential to transform the industry by being able to not only work on any device, Mac, PC, tablet, or smartphone, but also has our CAM software built in so additive manufacturing can become a reality. To provide a little bit more context as to how we came to this point, we dug in and did extensive research, speaking to people in the industry to get a feel for their pain points. Many of them are colleagues of yours, and some of the responses are reflected on this slide, but overall, it was feedback like this. I'm spending way too much time on updates and managing our tool as opposed to designing. I want to get the technology out of the way and focus on being creative. I'm tired of sending a file and worrying about whether or not it'll be corrupt when it arrives. I need to be able to work from anywhere on any device and not be glued to my desk. So we took all of this into account and decided that it was time to hit the reset button. So out of the Autodesk labs came Fusion 360, and this is what we're calling the future of making things. Essentially, we're inviting you to leverage the Autodesk cloud, and we're delivering accessibility from virtually anywhere on any device in a way that's currently unmatched by any other tools. When we talk about integrated product development, everything gets done under one roof. There's no jumping from application to application. It's all integrated in a tight package with Fusion. When you get your design, you of course engineer it and you make your changes, then it automatically updates for you. While at the same time on the back end, all of your data is being managed. And you can go back at any time and collaborate with people from any device, ask them to take a look at it. You can share notes. If you have an idea in the evening at home or on the train during your commute, you can access it from an iPhone or on any Mac product. This is unprecedented. Because this is cloud enabled, it runs local on your workstation. So if you lose your internet connection or want to work from an airplane while you're traveling on business, it works in offline mode. Then it updates when you log back on to pick up exactly where you left off. You can start your work in the office on a PC, then leave, go to dinner, and pick up where you left off on your Mac at home. Fusion does not care what machine you're on. This is the future of making things, and it's all part of the Autodesk Product Innovation Platform. So that's a quick update on Fusion, and without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce Autodesk Technical Specialist, Stephen Brown, who will be showcasing the tool for you today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt. I trust everybody can see, should just see a blue screen right now. I'm just going to do a quick logistics check.
Yes.
And Steve, you and Matt can hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, fantastic. Yes, I thank you for all for attending this morning. I know your time is valuable. I hope you'll enjoy showing up. What we're looking at here is just the collaboration portal for the Product Innovation Platform. We call it A360. It's been around for a while. And what you see is a permission to log in for me. You see all the projects that I'm involved in, many of which I'm the owner of. One, I'm not the owner. I'm simply an invited participant. On the right-hand side, you see activity stream of all the projects that I've been working on lately, whether it's related to this event or others. I do have a woodworking project here, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to dive into that. The idea is that everybody's connected and working hard on planes, in airports, at home even. So the Fusion 360 platform, as Matt mentioned, allows you to access your data at any time, anywhere. Multiple people can be involved, activity feeds, comments back and forth are all detailed here on this web browser. I happen to be in Firefox. It works equally as well on Google Chrome, Internet Explorer, Safari, phones, tablets, Macs, PCs. What I'm going to use today as my subject matter is I'm going to use a wood chair that was given to me in a sketch, in a pencil sketch. Now, he was nice enough to give me sort of traditional top, front, and right views. I will have to admit that I am not in any way artistic or creative. I'm a mechanical engineer by degree or affliction, a lot of people would say. So, you know, I want to show you the tool. I wanted to use a data set here that would resonate with you, and I talked to Steve, and he thought a sort of a sculptured chair would be appropriate. So I'm going to jump right into the authoring tool. This is Fusion, and you know, the first thing I would like to do is go and retrieve that image that was given to me for this project. You know, in Fusion we call these canvases, and the idea is that, you know, we want to be able to look at these canvases, to trace on top of them, make our designs. We can change the opacity for it, set up so that we can select through it. And we do have a tree. I don't want people to feel like they're out of sorts. This browser tree on the left-hand side shows not just the canvas, but everything that's going to be in our design. So it's very easy to get used to Fusion. It's going to be very familiar. The canvas came in, the image that you inserted, you don't know the scale. It's very easy just to simply calibrate it here in Fusion. I know this is 36 inches tall. So I pick 2 points and I specify that it's 32 inches tall. Canvas can also be, you know, moved around. I like to have things kind of faced around the origin. You know, maybe it's my technical background, but we have a few other canvases in here as well, so it's nice to have them. I'm going to try to go slow here. I know GoToMeeting can sometimes, you know, be kind of slow and cause things to delay. So I'm going to try not to pan around or zoom too much. try to stay pretty focused. Please, if my audio breaks out, somebody scream at me in the chat window, or if the screen freezes, I'll try to keep an eye on it over there. Now, in the past, I probably would have started with guide curves or maybe some path geometry in parametric modeling. Again, being a machine designer, that was sort of what we knew, loss and sweeps. I'm just turning on a couple of the canvases here, and I'm going to actually start. I'm just going to start with an actual piece of geometry, a little cube here. You'll notice in Fusion, there's pulls and push handles on everything you create. There's also a dialog box that you can use if you want to type in exact numbers. It's your choice. I'm going to use 2x4 and use a quad box here. Zoom frames, the zoom cube is up there in the top-hand corner. Very familiar to everybody, up front, right? So I'm just going to start by shaping this essentially how I would have probably sketched the guide curve. I would have sort of gone in here by hand and sketched a spline or a series of tangent arcs. But this time I'm going to do it in Fusion. I'm going to do it directly with the geometry. I just start with that primitive, and I start pulling it around. Switch to a front view, pull the leg in a little bit. I know it's going to arc around across the top, so I'm going to go ahead and rotate this just a bit. And we're going to be doing a lot of this, and we'll go through some of the finer details of what we're doing when we move this information. But suffice to say, I can move edges, faces, or vertices independent of each other. Now, this is a symmetrical object. I don't think that's a great leap of faith there to go through that. So I'm going to set up some symmetry here. I'm going to do that with the mirror duplicate command, but I do want to point out the size of the tooltips here. Like when I started using Fusion, I came from a parametric modeling background. Much like many of you, I've used Inventor most recently, but I've also got a background in SolidWorks, the Creo tools, and others. So the idea of mirroring and symmetry is very familiar. It's everybody's pretty comfortable with that. It just means that now when I modify this shape, I'm doing it on both sides. I think I'm going to start by connecting these two sides across the way with a bridge. Now that gives me the smooth crossing. Again, there's spaces here that I can now manipulate. I'm going to start just by rotating it up to create the seat back. Maybe move it up a little bit, just kind of looking at my sketch. And we'll come around the front and start doing some similar drags and pulls. Again, you can see how when I cross faces, I pick faces inside the box. I pick faces that are crossing the box. Very similar to any kind of Windows functionality that you're familiar with. So I'm going to just kind of pause here for a second. I'm going to go slow so that we don't get any kind of delay. But I'm just doing this by eye. Okay, I'm not really dead set on specific numbers. I'm just trying to get the shape and the form down to be something that's close to the artist's sketch. It's all about just getting some ideas out here on the paper quickly, right? Let's talk about getting ideations out without having to worry about the tool so much, just getting them into a form that I can work with. I think that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Now you notice the comment I'm writing it's going to go with the version. Data management is built into Fusion. It's not an afterthought. It's not a tack on. It's not a third party. It's actually built in from the beginning. Those versions are kept. I don't have to do anything overt. I don't have to check in. I don't have to check out. I just simply save and put a comment, and my thoughts are recorded. Now I'm moving this edge down a little bit. I'm going to work on the seat bottom. You know, pulling the edges around really give me good control. But sometimes I want to add an extra edge to give more control. And the toolbox here, the little sculpt toolbox that pops up, that's just my S key. It's great. It pops up right where my mouse is. I don't have to go searching through menu bars. I can type in a couple of letters and it gives me all the corresponding commands that are available that start with that. And in this case, I'm inserting an edge. I can insert one edge on either side of the existing. I can insert two. I think I'm just going to use one in this case. And we'll move it about here, should work. Again, all these edges can be moved independently after they're created. They're not locked into position in any way. Now, the reason I'm doing this is I want to delete some faces. You know, that's something, just pick a couple of faces, hit the delete key. And notice how Fusion, the whole is automatically rounded off, looking for that curvature continuity. If you notice when I was dragging, Fusion was doing the same thing, trying to make sure all the edges maintain that smooth curvature. Now I'm just going to pull this out a little bit to try to get some material to build my seat bottom. I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to take a look at it from the right. If I want to kind of straighten this up a bit, I think that would be a good idea. And I'll kind of pause for a moment. Now, I'm not trying to match it exactly, but keep in mind that moving edges, faces, and vertices, it's all based on how you select. So here's this leg that's just sort of sitting out. If I just grab those pieces, you know, I could just move those around. You can see how the corresponding geometry follows my lead, keeping curvature, keeping that smooth shape. You know, for me to do that in the past in parametric tools, how many guide curves would I have had to just change there, or path profiles? I shudder to think, oh, I know I probably couldn't do it. And there are guys out there who could do it for sure. It's just a matter of how long would it take. Now, before I start working on the back of this seat bottom, I'm going to turn on my other canvas. I have one down on the floor there. And I'm also going to use a section view. You know, just for the sake of visibility, you know, I want to just minimize the amount of information that I'm looking at. So I'm going to create this section view. I'm not cutting my model in half. This is purely just a view control. In Fusion, we call them section analysis. And again, you have tick boxes. You can type in exact numbers. I prefer the pull handles. It just makes life a lot easier. So much like I did before, I'm just going to rotate this edge a little bit. I'm going to start pulling just to get a shape that I think I can work with. That looks pretty good. Use my shortcut key because I have the bridge command on there, which is one of my favorites in here. Hopefully we'll get some things to kind of go off, and we can look at some recovery. But so far, all the shapes that I am doing are coming out exactly how I had envisioned them. Notice Manipulator has arrow handles that pull in the direction of the axes, right? So I can pull in and out. I can move in a specific plane. So when I'm pulling on these, you'll see that's what I'm doing most of the time, pulling things in the world coordinates. You can use local coordinates, and you can define your own. The center pad that I'm hovering over now, it moves along that plane, but I'm not limited to a specific direction. So I'm staying, parallel to the screen here, but able to move those spaces in that direction. The same manipulator is available for edges, vertices, and faces, which is something I really like about Fusion, is the consistency of the interface. So I'm gonna save this again, create another version automatically here. And we'll start working on the front here. In much the same way, I'm going to pull the front of my seat frame across. Now I'll stop midway and just start manipulating this. And in this case, I'm going to use the manipulator that's the scale. It just scales in the Z. So in my views in Z here. So we can move, we can scale, stretch, all with the same manipulator. And we'll bring that across. Nice. Now, I wasn't too concerned about that one when I positioned the profiles, because I know I can always come back in here after the fact and edit these as a group. So just looking forward on the chair, I can pull this down and kind of take a peek to the back. And I want it to be, somewhere, roughly the same level as the back. It's not critical, because I'm just sort of going for, sort of a very friendly shape, not so much a hard-edged engineering shape. I'm going to turn off that right-hand canvas. I don't need that anymore. Deleting a ring of faces just allows me to now work on the inner seat area. And in this, I'm going to fill that gap with the fill hole command. Again, it's just select, a single edge, and we get this surface in here. There's a couple of options that you can take in here. I like the reduce star, and we'll throw that in. And then I'll just repeat the same command for the bottom. I'll save another version. Steve, Matt, is the video keeping up all right? Audio good?
Yes, it is on this end, Stephen. Thank you.
Okay. I was glancing over at the chat, and I haven't seen anything come in, so this is good news. So I'm going to continue here. I'm going to work on the seat bottom just a little bit, and I want you to keep in mind that when you have large faces like this, you can't exert a whole lot of control on them, because you're going to be pulling those entities up all together. So you see how I've created faces before by dragging. This time I'm just going to subdivide this up into multiple faces, and I'm going to specify that I want 3 faces in one direction, and I want no subdivision in the other. So where I had 3 large faces, I now have 9 smaller ones running in the direction that I desire. And the reason for that is I want to take these seating areas here, and I could pick more faces, or I could probably even do it with edges if I like. But I just kind of pull this up, pull it down. I just want to get a nice curvature to the seat bottom. Nothing drastic, just very gentle. But you see how it maintains that curvature with the three faces in the middle that I created, and it just spreads that gradual curve out across the entire bottom of the seat. Now, optionally, I could do the same thing on the front of the seat to the leg arches. So, I'll just pull those down, and we'll, kind of peek back. And again, I'm just doing this by eye. I'm really looking at, the angle that this sort of fades back and that fall off, and that looks pretty good. Now, I do have a little higher section here, and I want to take advantage while I can to point out that we can switch to polygonal mode as well. So if you're comfortable working in polygons, that's not like a Fred Flintstone seat. I'm intentionally switching back, and I can really see in this mode, Fusion really gives me a strong insight into the vertices and edges that are going to be most affected, or most effective rather, at smoothing out that hump. So I'm just going to use that mode to pull that up, put it back into smooth mode. And I'm going to call that money. Now, I was pulling edges before and faces. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to do it a little slower this time. You notice when I pull these three faces out along this axis, I'm going to pull them directly, but I sort of get that flying buttress effect there on the uprights. That's because I'm not adding any segments. I'm not adding any faces. I'm simply pulling the existing ones out. By simply holding down a modifier key in Fusion, you can get drastically different results. In this case, holding the Alt key while I do the exact same drag adds faces and gives me a much more desirable sort of nose on the chair. So similar commands, similar actions, but just a little modifier key to help you get along. My fingers to type. I'm going to move my attention now down to the bottom here. The picture showed the leg wrapping around and being the same size, and that's fine. I'm going to do it in much the same fashion that I did the back of the seat with a little twist. I'm going to delete some faces, and remember, Fusion is very good about smoothing those curves back up. I'm going to use the Alt drag command that we just discovered to not only drag that edge out, but to drag it with faces, adding material to my design. I'm going to pause it there. I'll go back to my browser tree. I'm just going to edit that section view. I'm using it now, but now I'm a little farther down. So I can edit that. Bring this a little farther down. Now I can get a clear visibility, probably a straight top view. Remember, double-clicking an edge selects the entire ring, which means that I can twist that edge, and now I'll pull it in plane, and this time I'll pull it in plane with the Alt key so that I add some material. A little bit of training, which I typically don't like to do in these settings, but I think it's important to kind of give a little bit of insight, man behind the curtain, if you will, of what I'm doing here. So I haven't had to use preview yet. Let's see if I can get this. This to crisscross. Let's see if we can showcase the preview ability. Yeah, there we go. I've never been so happy to have something screw up. So, when you're dragging and pushing models around in this way, in this free-form environment, it's inevitable that your human eye and your hands just move things to the wrong spot. Fusion is great about, first off, putting it in that polygon state, so it's easy to see. You can really tell what's going on. I've got some crisscrossing here in that last bridge command. Simple undo, and I'll repeat the bridge command, only this time I'll use all the tools available instead of just a couple. Rather than, picking points or dictating edge to edge, I'm just going to turn on the preview, and I have a few buttons here that I can use to flip direction. It's just flipping the profile direction of the two. So with the preview on, I get an idea of what I'm going to get. I can increase or decrease the number of segments across here in the back. I do want a segment right in the middle, so I'm going to go with 4 in this case. Or I guess an edge right in the middle. And then we'll clean this up a little bit with some pull. I'm going to be careful here. I just want to go straight back with that in axis. That's why I'm on the arrow. If I want to change the profile in that area, I can straighten up these edges and make them point more towards the center of my arch. I'm just kind of going by the sketch. I think that's probably pretty close. Let's take a little closer look at this edge here, this hoop. This is a really good place that I like to highlight the ability to scale on a specific axis with this manipulator. You can see how I'm just adjusting the curve in that one direction. So there's no fear of dragging that in the wrong method, in the wrong direction. Top view makes it even easier to see. It just means you can get your job done a little bit quicker, getting that shape out for the next design. Now, I've been using the Edit Form tool. That's the one that I've been using when I pick faces. In this case, these two edges, faces, edges, or vertices, and the Edit Form. Now, I've been using it in just its most basic form, right? I'm just going to pull these edges up and down, and the continuity is just maintained for me. But I do want to highlight the idea that we have this idea of soft modification, meaning that I can spread in a circular fashion the radius of effect for this pull. Now you notice when I turn that on, I have a value here. I'll set it to 15 inches. And you'll see that I have red dots that appear that show me those things that will be modified now, propagating that in a circular fashion. Now there's a couple of different ways you can use this. I like to use it with a smaller radius, maybe something like a 3, so I don't get down to the bottom. I don't want to move the bottom edge. I want it to stay nice and straight. But I also like the rectangular version. Now, in this case, instead of a radial sphere of influence, I can count the number of segments or faces that I affect. So I'm going to dial it down to like 2 going left to right in the horizontal and 0 vertically. If I just want to affect this top edge. If I increase the number of faces that I affect, I move farther out. There's also a gradient slider that you can slide to get the look that you're after. And there's also fall off types. This one I'm using is the smooth. There's a linear fall off and then a spherical as well. So instead of just simply pulling and pushing, you do have control over a wider range than just the faces that you're affecting. So I'm going to turn off my section view. I'm going to turn off my origins. I'm going to go ahead and finish this out. And I'm going to say that's a pretty good shape. I'm going to call that the form part of it done. Now I still have a little bit more work to do in this chair, But I do want to talk about the collaboration a little bit. You know, when I first logged in, I was using Firefox. You can kind of see it down here. But it is good for any browser. Google Chrome is very popular. You simply log into your hub. But I'm actually going to log in as a different person. When you log into the Fusion platform, you log in as an individual with an email and your own profile. This profile includes things like your title, you know, first and last name, company, and phone number. That's how you're entered into these projects as a user. Now, Bill here, my friend who suggested this chair, he sent me the PDF. He only belongs to a pair of projects. Neither one that he owns, they're both owned by me, but I've invited him in. He is the, he's the artist, if you will, where I'm more the mechanic. But he is involved intimately in this, and I want him to be able to review where I'm at. So he has the ability to log in and look at this design because I've invited him into this project. All the versions that were automatically created are listed here as well. He can go back at any one of those saves and view one. And you can see my comments are here as well. So I make sure the comments are meaningful. And not only can, as a project member, can we view these, we can actually promote one to be the most current version if we decide we sort of went off track somewhere. He can also download this file. Now, I want to point out that there is no such thing as Fusion 360 2016 or Fusion 2017. If you have Fusion, it's the same version today, yesterday, and tomorrow. There is no file compatibility. There is no backwards or forward compatibility. That just doesn't exist anymore. If I invite you to this project, you can download this Fusion file in any one of these formats that you see listed. If IGES doesn't work for you, you can come back in and download a step or an SAT. No more do we have to go into the CAD tool, save as, email, FTP, box, take your pick, and then do it again if the IGES file didn't translate right or the step file. This is all self-serve. And the way we do that is we declare that we can share this model with that user. We can even share it with anybody on the web and just have them view it. So I can copy this and I can paste it, and then users can view that model, but they cannot download it. If I decide that I want to give them download access as well, I just flip the switch. More importantly, without a CAD tool, without a CAD install on any box, any device, Bill can make suggestions. Maybe he wants me to raise the seat back. Maybe he wants to put a hole in the middle. Maybe he'd like me to do some other things that are just, you know, text-based. This can be saved as part of this project. Now it's logged under his name because, you know, he did it, but I can reply to it, and he can even add further comments. So I'm going to close out as William. I'm going to go back into my project. I'm going to look at the exact same piece of work that I've been working on. And you'll notice that there's William's markup. There's his comments, all in real time. Any device, anytime, anywhere. Inside Fusion, there's comments in here as well. The same comments, mind you. So Williams asked me to make some changes. Here's the markup. I can get started. Now he's asked me to, increase the height, put a window in it. Now, in the past, I might have to sit there and spend a few minutes, actually for me, more than a few minutes, deciding what I would have to do to make this possible. Which guide curve do I have to touch? Do I have to add sections? Can I even do it without sketch relations blowing up in my face? And then, what about the rotating? I'm not so sure if I could even do that in a traditional tool with guide curves. It certainly would not be fun, and I wouldn't be enjoying myself. Certainly, as an engineer. Now, as far as the hole, we'll use a trick that we've used before. I'm going to pick a couple of faces. I'm going to subdivide that in 2x2 squares. Do the same thing in the back. This does not change the topology of the surface underlying. It's just giving me more control, more things that I can tug, pull, push, and in this case, delete. So I could pull those holes around a little bit. I can make them different sizes. Actually, I'm pretty happy with the results as they are. So I'm just gonna bridge them. Now that's a pretty nice bridge. It rounded it off. So I'm gonna undo it because I do want to point out that this is an environment where we have traditional parametric modeling, sculpting, and surfacing tools as well. So maybe I want to leave those hard edges there and then sort them out later with a traditional fillet or chamfer, just to knock the edge off. So you can disable that smoothing and then go back to your more traditional tools, or maybe you look at it a little bit later from a manufacturing standpoint. I'm going to make this a solid now. And with the boundary fill, Fusion lets me pick any multiple items. I can pick surface bodies, reference planes in this case, other solid bodies, and create this new complete solid body. Those of you who are familiar with multi-body assemblies or multi-body parts will be very comfortable inside Fusion. So just to show you, there's a legacy surface body there, and we'll just hide it. And now we have our solid body up front. I'll grab this edge, I'll pull on it a little bit. Put a radius, maybe 0.75. Yeah, that looks good. Do the same thing on the back. maybe I just want to break the edge a little bit. That'll work. And notice, those are traditional fillet features. You can see them down here in what is essentially a feature history. We call it the timeline. You can drag this backwards and those fillets will disappear. You can edit those fillets. So this modeling environment that I'm in now was different than the sculpt environment that I was in before. And there's also a patch environment that lets you do traditional surface modeling. Notice I haven't done anything knit. I haven't trimmed surfaces. I haven't sketched anything. I've just been dragging around, pushing and pulling, and getting the design out as quick as I can in these sort of shapes. And that's where Fusion's strength is getting those ideas out quickly. So I'm going to bookmark a version here as the geometry is done, and I'm going to move into the rendering and appearance phase. And then I have a few more things. I know we were looking to end up at the top of the hour. I should be good. I might run a little long. Does that be a problem, Steve or Matt?
No, that would be fine.
Fantastic. So let's apply some appearances here. In fact, I think I want to do the appearances in the render environment. I can do them here. I can do them in the model environment. So let's put a wood finish for this audience. I think would be good. Now this is a mahogany right out of the Fusion library. I'm going to kind of zoom in here a little bit. I realize there's no way you're going to carve this out of a single tree. We'll get to that unless you're really good, I would think. We'll get to a little bit more detail on sectioning this up into bits and pieces in a minute. This is a good way for me to show the appearances. This is the out-of-the-box mahogany. If you use any of these standard, you can duplicate them and make your own, so I'll simply do that. And I will make a custom mahogany finish. And I'm going to simply remove the pores from this appearance and then apply that to my chair. So, what you'll see is, well, you understand better than I do the idea of these pores. It was something I didn't really realize. I had seen it, but I didn't know what they were called. And I'll just edit this. Since this material is used in this assembly, it updates live. I can check boxes to move or add pores. I can even change the color slightly if you want to change the hue. I don't believe there's any such thing as a green mahogany, but just suffice it to say that if you can't find a material or a finish appearance in here, you can take one that's existing that's close and modify it to make it your own. So into the rendering environment, where we can make some more significant changes to that texture rather than just turning pores on and off. We can actually take the map and start moving it around. So now, we're cutting this chair, instead of right up the center of the tree, we're cutting it, sort of off, off to one side out in the rings. And you can move this this grain structure, up, down. You can rotate it, and I'm going to show that in a little bit more detail in just a few minutes. Right now, I want to get through the rendering phase. So, rendering environment gives you the ability to move those texture maps around a good bit more. Of course, you also have, the scene settings, the background. We have, these HDR environments that if you want to put your design, in the middle of a gravel road, you can. It's there for you to do so. If you have an HDR environment that you want to bring in, you can do that as well. The Plaza, I always like the Plaza. It showed up in some of the other Autodesk tools. Move the chair, shadows follow, and so forth. There's also photo booth-like environments here as well, which is what I use more often than not. The outside environments are, they're nice and all, but generally speaking, people don't take pictures of chairs out on gravel roads, or maybe they do. I don't know. I guess I should be careful. We'll use the solid color background. I'm going to rotate this around a little bit and find a good place to take a picture of this. I think that's a good one. Depth of field, absolutely. You can set your blur to kind of focus that down. I'm going to pull this up a little bit. I'm going to have it focus on, this top corner of the chair. We'll turn on ray tracing, and we'll talk a little bit about the challenges that we've done in the past with rendering. Normally right now I'd turn on ray tracing, my fans would kick on, my second, third, and fourth CPUs would start cranking out, my lap would get hot. It's very intensive. It's not that it's a bad thing. It's just, as this image refines, and you'll see it as I speak, it's slowly refining to get better and better resolution, tracing each ray of light that bounces off this chair to calculate it appropriately. Now I can render this locally, just like we've done in the past. I just capture this image, I tell it what the resolution is, I hit OK, and I wait. But the beauty of Fusion is the fact that because it's cloud-based, I can push this work off to the cloud. That does two things for me. One, it takes it off my desk, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. There's some custom settings in here we can cloud render, or you can pick some of these presets that we've done in the past. So, I just hit render. And you can think of it as just, I'm just going to put it in the oven and let it bake. And when it's done, I can go down here and look in the rendering gallery. You can see some other ones here that have been done previously. And this one will clock down and it'll show up in my rendering gallery a little bit later. Cloud computing, I hate to say limitless because obviously there's some finite number, but compared to my laptop, it might as well be unlimited processing power. So we'll check back on this a little bit later. I promised to show you, some of this kind of chopped up into more manufacturable, and I did that. I created a chair similar to this one, and took some representative cuts. Didn't do the whole chair, just did a couple of pieces. But most importantly, is to know that there is a sketch here. That if I go to a right-hand view, you see what I've done. I've taken a sketch, a plain old sketch. You draw a line, you put an angle on it, and I've just simply cut that leg away from the base. So there would be a joint here, whether it's mortise of tenon glued, probably something a little bit more elaborate than that. But my skill and knowledge of woodworking is failing me. The other thing I've done is I've made this multiple components, right? So we have a left leg, a right leg, in this bottom hoop. The bottom hoop of which is itself cut into laminated structure. So let's take a little closer to that. I'm gonna turn off the other legs. I'm gonna activate this component, which is this bottom hoop, and we'll look a little closer. Probably don't need that sketch on anymore. I noticed the light bulb, so it's real clear to show. Pun was not intended, but the light bulbs, visibility is turn it on and off, very easy. So this bottom hoop in itself is, multi-bodies, right? Because we've said that we're going to glue this up, before we carve it. I'm going to turn them all off except for, this one, which really shows this grain structure quite nicely, and that's the reason I wanted to come over here and not spend a bunch of time on the grain back on the whole chair. This is probably much more representative of what you would see in a real world environment. So now if we start to manipulate the texture maps as we did before, you really, I think, well, at least I do, because I don't work in this field every day, I get a feel for, as I move the center, the heart wood, I can see that because of where I'm cutting it, the grain looks different on the beveled edge than it does on the side. But that Fusion does a really good job of making sure that wherever I move it, it does faithfully represent, what that would look like if I really cut a piece of wood and carve it down. Now, if I rotate it 90 degrees, I think that also shows, how that grain moves around. And I was really quite impressed with this. And now I can't stand walking through the room without looking closely. I have to thank Steve Whittam for this. I look at every piece of furniture now that I pass. It's not just the chair anymore. I really look close at it to see, what did they do? How did they carve this? Some of the things that Steve sent me, some of the images were truly amazing of what people are doing out there. So there's a quick look into, slicing it up into more of a real world. If you have to make a fab drawing for these, absolutely. Once these are busted up into components like I've done, you can apply things to them. They have a name. I just used leg bottom, left and right. You could put a proper part number in there. You get quantities, so if there's multiples in there, the material can be applied to each one. You get the parts list and the balloons, as you'd expect. It's not anything new, but it is good to know that with all the T-splines and that sort of functionality, you're not hung out with no with no way to document your design. So we'll close back on the spinal. You can see our rendering is finished. We've kind of opened it up here, zoom in a little bit, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to end on that note. I'm going to turn it back over to Steve and Matt, and let them finish off. So Matt, I'm going to change the presenter to you, if I can do this without missing a button.
That's okay, Stephen. You can stay on that screen for now. Thank you very much, and great job. You heard us talk about how Fusion 360 is revolutionizing the CAD world, but what you may not know is that it's available at a revolutionary price point. Fusion is currently available for $300 for an annual subscription per user. That means you can set up a 5-person team with Fusion for a full year for $1,500. So clearly there's a lot to be excited about here, and it's all part of what we're calling the future of making things. So once again, thank you very much, and on behalf of the Autodesk team, it was a pleasure presenting to you today, and I will pass it over to Mr. Whittam in closing.
Well, again, thank you very much. Thank you, Autodesk. I appreciate Steve and Matt's help. This is great. I wanted to, again, present the tool to our group because this is probably one of the first tools that really will think the way that I build. And even though we're not really showing joinery on this particular chair, you could see that this can, or of course, be cut up in sections. Joinery could be added, milled, machined, so that we get the results we want. The other thing about this is it doesn't have to stand alone. I mean, it is fully compatible with products like Inventor. Okay, so sometimes we will move this into Inventor and augment this even further. So there's lots and lots of possibilities here. I started doing things like hand-carved items, and these are all possibilities that with conventional software that we've been using in the past are just very difficult to work with. So I'm hoping that what we showed today allows a lot more freedom in the design side of things. You know, many people look at furniture as just very rectilinear, but you know, a little more tooling to it simply can create dramatic effects that really will differentiate one's design from others. So again, I hope that this was meaningful to all. Always call to action on this is if you think that this might be something that you are interested in pursuing or looking at or discussing, our staff here at Woodham Associates is always available for conversation. And we can discuss how you can get started, what kind of training's available, what's available on YouTube and the internet and the like. So in closing, I will say that this has been recorded today, and there were many people that signed up that couldn't get in because there was some limits to the system, but we had well over 100 companies wanting to see these kinds of tools. So again, this is recorded. We'll be sending it to everybody. It'll be posted. And any questions, please don't hesitate. Give us a call here at Woodham Associates. Again, thank you very much for your time.